This is the DVO podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, it has been far too long. Welcome back to the newly refurbished, rebranded, in high definition DVO podcast. We are your hosts, Davey D, and the other guy,
the vengeful one.
Yes. Today we have two very special guests on our show. We have Punisher and Canatian. How are you guys doing?
Excellent.
Doing awesome.
Great. It's good to have you guys. What have you guys been up to for the day, just to set the mood?
Just work for me. Tried to get it done early so I could hop on here and be interruption free.
Ah, smart. What about you, Canatian?
Drinking my coffee this morning and playing Champions.
How many cups of coffee is that for you?
Only 3 this morning.
Only 3.
And I guess maybe we'll jump a little forward. How many cups of coffee is it during a feud?
None for me.
Boy.
I sleep.
Are we talking a 24 or a 48?
Let's say 24.
Probably at least 8.
Oh my God.
Maybe
Jeez.
more.
Okay, so clearly that is the secret to your success. That's why the fingers go so fast. Anyway.
Do you even sleep at all or take a nap?
For 24 hours, usually not, but that's been changing. And 48 hours, yes, I do.
Okay. Smart.
She used to. She didn't always do that. I've been yelling at her to actually get some sleep. You know, she's up by like 5 million points in the #1 spot. I'm like, why don't you go to sleep? Like, I can't. And then she does this calculation in her head, like, if I sleep for 3 hours, I might lose the lead or something like that. I'm like, good God.
Yeah, she's a beast. She's usually like #1 or #2, right?
She's exactly where she wants to be. If she's #2, it's because she wanted to be.
I like that. Wow. Okay, Canatian, I see you. I see you. So, getting into your past of what interested you into being a wrestling fan, exactly how were each of you introduced to, I assume, the WWF, since that's everyone's entry point?
Yeah. I'll go first for these. And we talked. Nat and I talked about this yesterday. Her journey story is actually much more interesting than mine, so that's why I wanted her to go second on that one. So I'll just go first for all of them. So, you know, I don't have an exact moment where I started watching it, but it was, I know, just when I was very young, probably 4 years old, maybe even younger. I was watching with my dad because my dad used to watch it all the time. And of course, he used to watch it when he was younger, so he knew the really, really older generation. But I grew up with like Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, Steamboat, Mr. Perfect, those guys. And I do have fond memories of when I was a kid. One was my mom took me to a wrestling event. I don't know what it was. Of course, when I was a kid, I told everyone it was WrestleMania, but of course it wasn't. But it was some weird wrestling event that, you know, Hulk Hogan was there, and it might have been a pay-per-view. It might have been, you know, a bigger pay-per-view, but at the time I had no idea. But it was, the main event was Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, and I remember I was at the rail. You know, I don't think my seats were at the rail, but I ran to the rail when Hulk Hogan came out because, of course, he was my idol back then. And, you know, you try to give him high five or whatever, so he ran by. And then the next guy out was Macho Man, and there was a curtain at the time. You know, there wasn't this big, you know, display they have where they kind of go backstage and it's just all these lights and stuff. It was just a curtain, and the curtain was partially left open. I remember looking back there and seeing Macho Man like flipping out. He was pissed about something.
Wow.
And he was running up and down. He was flipping tables, and I don't think it was part of the pay-per-view. I think it was, you know, something personal he was pissed about. And I remember, you know, just seeing that, like, oh my gosh, look at him. And everyone's, you know, I can kind of see it back there. Anyway, they came out, and the result of the match was probably disqualification because the ref got hit with a chair. And, you know, Macho was a heel at this time.
Right.
So it was actually pretty cool. That was one of my fondest memories. So beyond that, you know, I can remember everything back to the NW, you know, when the guys went to NWO, you know, all that stuff is just etched in my brain. So that's kind of my story about that.
And what about you, Canatian?
Well, you were wrong. Mine is not from the WWF.
Ooh.
I was born in Calgary, so the Hart Foundation or the Hart family owned Stampede Wrestling. That was a local production that they used to wrestle in the Stampede Corral. And it was a weekly program on TV that was broadcasted. So when I was really, really young, it used to be on Saturday mornings. So me and my brothers, after watching cartoons, Stampede Wrestling used to be on. And I remember the announcer was the one that used to always call the Flames games, Calgary Flames games.
Mm-hmm.
And it had all the wrestlers. And that's when I first got into wrestling. And then, of course, when WWF, I would watch that as well. But it's all started with Stampede Wrestling.
Awesome. Were the all the Harts on Stampede Wrestling, or only like a few of them?
At the time, only a few of them, but they all made their start there, basically.
Oh.
Who was all in there at that time?
Oh boy, I was so young. But Stu Hart used to wrestle. You had the Hart, Owen Hart, Bret Hart, like all the Hart family did start Anvil there.
Right. Oh wow.
Lots of them, Davy Boy. So many of them that trained in the dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they used to do the local show of the Stampede Wrestling. And WWF bought it way back when for 1 year, and then they ended up selling it back to the Hart family.
Do they still have the Stampede videos on the network, or did they take them down?
I don't know if they're on the WWE network. I know that you can find them on YouTube.
I think they were on the network, and then Bret sued them because he wasn't getting paid for it. So I don't know if they're up or down, but I should check it out if they are. Okay. So from your Stampede days, or just your younger wrestling days, are there any wrestlers you identified with personally, like their gimmicks or their real life story or anything of that nature?
Maybe not when I was young. I think this is a tough question because I don't really know. I think if anything, maybe when Trish, when the first woman that I really was wrestling at the time, I mean, she was shown to be a sex symbol in the beginning, but that's not really what she wanted to portray. She was a nice person and humble person, but she was also a badass in the end, and she never gave up to keep honing her skills and keep getting better and better and better.
Right. Okay, what about you, Punisher?
Yeah, kind of the same way. I don't really identify, so to speak, with anyone, but there is someone that I can relate to, and I think a lot of people can relate to, is Shawn Michaels. And you know, he used to be a dick. He used to be a druggie, and he performed it great. Everything was kind of second base to where he was in the ring. He was always great there, but he had demons, and he faced them and he won. Which in whatever way you can face your demons and win, that's a huge success in life. And I think everyone has some form of demons in their life that they have to face and conquer and overcome. And just him doing that. And actually, he had a book about it, and I listened to the audio book because I travel a lot for work, and it was actually pretty cool how he did it. And it's it's a story for another time. But I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially me. Or at least in my life, especially me, I've faced a few demons in life, and you kind of have to face them and kick their ass, really. So he was an inspiration, really, to me, and he's always also my favorite wrestler. So it kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Okay, when was your first time actually witnessing Shawn?
My first time was probably still when he was with the Rockers, and at that point, I was like, oh, another tag team. And I didn't really care for him. It's not until he separated from Marty Jannetty and became HBK, that I started to like him. He was just, with the Rockers, he was cool. He was fun to watch. He was high flying. And then, I mean, that barbershop scene is obviously everyone that's a wrestling fan knows what that is. and just how perfect the kick was. And when he sent him through the glass, everything looked perfect. And when he ripped the piece of paper and it ripped perfectly to only show him, I mean,
it was
almost like they shot that scene over and over until they got it perfect. I don't know if that's what happened, but that was such a perfect heel turn. It's probably the best heel turn I've ever seen in my life. But I definitely remember that. And then his gimmick all the way up. I mean, you could almost see that he was a rising superstar as soon as he separated from Jannetty. And, you know, he got Sensational Sherry as his manager, and she sang his song, which was awful at the time. But it's just his growth, and then I found out at the end, you know, probably some odd years ago, that he was going through all these addictions to painkillers and drugs and all that. And I had no idea, and I'm sure a lot of people had no idea watching him, because he was always so fluent in the ring, and everything in his promos were just perfect, and everything was great. And it's like, man, he was going through this addiction, and then you hear these stories from his buddies like Scott Hall and Nash and Triple H and X-Pac, how like he would literally just go to his hotel room and pass out from painkillers or drugs or whatever. And then, I mean, it's hard to believe that he was going through that, and then how poetic he would be in the ring. So, my fondest memories of him were definitely the barbershop, and then the ladder matches with Razor. Those were, I've watched those over and over and over again. The Iron Man match is one of my favorite matches just because it was perfect. And Nat's favorite wrestler, or one of her favorite wrestlers, is Bret Hart. So we love to go back and forth on those two.
Well, I'm gonna take that side on that one, but
yeah.
No, I actually started. I probably should be way ahead of where I actually am, but a couple years ago when the network came out, I started watching like WrestleMania 1 onward, and for a while there I missed a bunch, but I didn't actually watch any, but I just recently rewatched the Iron Man match for the first time since whenever I watched it as a kid. And it's just amazing to me to see two guys that can A, even perform for that long, B, make it engaging. I didn't look away. I mean, that was 60 plus minutes of not looking away. It was that good. And C, to actually be able to tell a story throughout that entire duration. I struggle to think of like who could put on a match like that today. Maybe Seth Rollins and AJ, but I mean,
it's exactly
the only two that I could think of that could. I mean, Rollins has proven that he can go 60 minutes.
Yeah,
you know, and but I mean, that would be. I don't. I mean, do you think we can see anything like that again?
Not like that, just because that was the first, and it was literally two living legends, and I don't think anyone will ever live up to Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart's status ever again. Just because, I mean, it was in an age where, you know, Attitude Era, and it was just in an age where wrestling wasn't, you know, so known. You know what I mean? Where everything's on social media now. There were spoilers, and everyone knows how horribly fake it is, and you know, the spots are just not what they used to be. So no, I don't think we'll ever see something like that. Now, can someone put on that match? Yeah, the two you mentioned, absolutely. That's funny, because when you said that, those are the two names that came to mind for me too.
Yeah, and in the chat here, Rev says Balor or Bryan probably could. Coyote says Cena and AJ. I could definitely see Cena and AJ. Yeah, I mean, although I don't know with Balor, I love Balor. I love watching him, but at the same time, I don't know if I've seen enough moves that would go 60 minutes with him. Bryan definitely could.
Yeah.
I mean, health aside, I don't know if he's capable just yet, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like you said, it's not the same environment around the match that it used to be, and it's to me, it's another topic, but I think it's just a pity that so much of it is spoiled these days because of you know, all the information that we have. I miss the days where when heel turns happened or people showed up from another promotion, it was just a complete shocker, you know. And nowadays,
I try not. Go ahead.
It's funny when you're watching, you know, a show like whatever, it's Raw or whatever, and like a brand new guy shows up, like that's supposed to shock everyone, and then they cut to the crowd and people have signs already.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah.
I hate that. At least pretend like nobody knows on
I try not to view spoiler sites before pay-per-views. If it's like weekly shows, I really don't care. But, you know, like Royal Rumble, when you have those surprise entrants, I like to be ignorant of who's going to show up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like when Ronda Rousey made her arrival, I wanted to be surprised for that. Like that would have been a holy shit moment, but it wasn't. So
No,
it completely lost its charm. But anyway,
yeah, Kyle just said AJ was a total surprise. I agree. I did not expect to see him ever in WWE.
That's true. But to me, that was also because that was before this game for me, and I didn't talk wrestling with anybody. Like no sites, no YouTube, didn't talk about it. So I was able to kind of maintain my own surprise that way. But yeah, that was pretty awesome. So Canatian, what are some of your favorite Bret Hart matches?
I don't know if I have any favorites. The one I really dislike would be the Montreal Screwjob, but
of course.
You know, but I always loved every match he did. I don't have any favorites. I always thought he was a great technician in the ring, and I always just, maybe it's the hometown thing, but I always admired him.
Quick, sidebar question. I don't mean to cut you off. Would you say that Bret Hart is a better technical wrestler than Benoit?
Yes.
Okay. What about you, Vengeful? Because I know he's your favorite.
Yeah, I would say so. I think what amazed me about Bret, especially now that I go back and watch some of his old matches, was just the variety of opponents that he could face. You know, he could have an incredible match with Shawn Michaels. He could have the little guy versus big guy match with Diesel and actually make it believable. You know, he could go up against the Undertaker. You know, Yokozuna. Like, it was just incredible that how he could adapt and still, you know, be able to sell everything that they do, still be able to, you know, get his offense going. And then, of course, as far as there were a few matches of his that I really, really enjoyed. Obviously, the Austin match from WrestleMania was iconic. But also the match that they had at Survivor Series was just, I think it was before that, was just much more of a technical masterpiece in my opinion. But also I think it was like one or two Survivor Series before that where he beat Diesel for the title. Again, it's hard. I'd be hard pressed to, you know, find somebody that could, you know, just as easily fight, let's say, in this day and age, Daniel Bryan, that could also take on Roman Reigns, that could also take on Braun Strowman, you know, and still make it look somewhat believable.
Rollins could.
Yeah, Rollins could. Rollins is amazing.
He really is. Yeah, I think Bret even made Sid. I think his name was Sid Vicious or Psycho Sid at the time. I don't remember what his name was at the time, but I think he even made him look good.
That's a feat.
Man, I feel left out of the loop because I didn't really have access to that era of WWE. So I'm basically going by your guys' nostalgia and knowledge of it. But I have no excuse because I have the network. So I was just telling Vengeful that what we should do for the podcast is have the people we are going to interview give us like a recommended watch list of their like favorite matches or whatever. So that way I can have some sort of inkling or clue as to what is going on, or like the inside workings of your mind of why you like this wrestler or why you like wrestling. So yeah, this is some worthwhile watching I got to do now with Bret Hart.
I mean, really, I think everyone on here can agree there's no bad match that Bret was ever in, or really even Shawn was ever in. Both those guys can carry their opponent and they can carry the match. So really, I don't think there was. I mean, there probably was a bad match somewhere along the line, but probably most of them are good. Especially the ones where they were mid card guys. Rewind all the way where they're going after the IC title. Those were the really good matches that no one really ever talks about.
Oh,
Yeah, I completely
absolutely.
agree.
There was one match that Bret had against Jean-Pierre Lafitte, whatever his gimmick was at the time, the pirate, and I remember watching that from, I don't remember if it was like an In Your House or something from like 94, 90, maybe early 95. And I remember watching that going, wow, this is such a waste of Bret Hart's talent, to have him on a pay-per-view against this guy. But then it was a great match. And again, it just proves the point that, and Shawn was the same way. Like, I don't remember a bad Shawn Michaels match. I really don't. And it's an art. It's an art, and there's very few guys in this era, I think, that can do that. But thankfully, there are a few, and I just hope that they continue to get pushed. Rollins being one of them.
Kevin Owens.
Yeah, love Kevin Owens.
Yeah, Owens is awesome. I like watching him. I love that Owens and Rollins match. I think it was 2 weeks ago. That was a surprise to see.
Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, I think there's probably a few guys that have that potential, but as long as they keep pushing guys like Roman Reigns,
when Reigns turns heel, you tell me you don't want to see him and then Rollins go out in an Iron Man match?
He's so much better as a heel.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? Yes, I mean, I would, just for the novelty of it, but for at the same time, limited move sets can only take you so far.
I agree 100%.
I agree. Yep. It's very true. Nat and I were talking during Raw, I think 2 weeks ago, and when Roman was paired with Rollins, and I said, "Oh my God, this is it! This is how they're going to turn him. They're going to get them like super best friends again, and they're going to have Reigns on Rollins, because Rollins right now is the ultimate face. Everyone is in love with that dude. I don't think there's a guy or girl that would boo him, because he's good at all around. So making Reigns go off on Rollins and then feuding those two in like a really heated feud. I mean, they kind of screwed up the first way around, because Roman was off on his thing, and Rollins came in and took the title, and then they didn't do anything with those two. At least I don't think they did. I don't remember doing anything. So I think they could really run off with a good feud, as long as Roman is a believable heel. You know what I mean? Like, he can't, when he turns heel, he can't be the whole I run this house or whatever. He's got to be a believable heel, and like, who the perfect heel right now is Elias. The guy's hilarious.
Yeah.
He just trashes the crowd. It's just funny, but something like that. I think if WWE books it right, they could really turn in a good feud with those two.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of limited move sets carrying an Iron Man match, did Hulk Hogan ever do an Iron Man match?
God, no, there's no way.
No.
In
fact, I don't even know how many other 60-minute Iron Man matches have WWE put on.
There was Rock and Triple H for sure. That's the only one I can remember, honestly.
Wasn't there a recent one? Or maybe I'm thinking of the women's. They did one, didn't they?
Did they? Oh, Sasha and
Bailey.
Yeah, that was good. That was very good. But yeah, I was wondering if like telling a story in the ring as opposed to having like a vast move set would carry a 60-minute match, depending on what the story is. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very odd, because those two had such a ridiculous history. I mean, it sounded like they genuinely hated each other. I'm talking about Hart and Michaels. It sounded like they genuinely hated each other. Mm-hmm. But like you said, they literally told a story through that entire match, and I don't think today you can do that. But at the same time, you can put good performers in the ring and tell a technical wrestling story.
Yeah, agreed.
But with any match, there's got to be, the headlocks to rest.
Right.
But it's a matter of who's gonna pull off these moves. You know who I'd like to see in a Iron Man match? It sounds stupid, but I'd like to see Shane McMahon in one.
Really? Against who?
I don't know. Against anyone that would be good. I mean, Kevin Owens. I'd like to see that, just because I think McMahon I know he's older and he sweats profusely, but he does put on good matches. There's not a lot of times where he's sitting there in a rest move. He doesn't have a lot of those headlocks, and he always does something crazy. I just think he'd be good in an Iron Man match. I don't know why, but I've always thought that.
You know what? Sorry, Vengeful, go ahead.
Yeah, then that's a creative answer. I would have never thought of Shane for that purpose, but I actually think he could.
A 60-minute Hell in the Cell match.
You know why I could
Can you imagine
believe that?
what the hell he'd do?
I could believe that because you remember that ambulance match he had with Kane like way back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was so good. And then his match he had with Angle at King of the Ring, I believe, where he got suplexed through the... Oh, my God. Yeah.
That was insane. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Stuff like that. Like, it's not what he could do, it's what he could take.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely Shane. He's the best performing non-performer, if you could put it as a category. Okay. Why not? Let's get into this game. With the what are your thoughts on some of the recent iterations?
I mean, Hell Mode is awesome. It's a breath of fresh air to the game, in my opinion. I honestly was getting very, very bored, and not that I still didn't like the game, but it was just the same thing over. The tours every day, or the limited time ones, every single time it's the same. Now they still are the same, but at least Hell Mode has kind of infused more interest in the game.
Yeah, I completely agree with Punisher. The Hell Mode is difficult and challenging, and it adds new life into the game. So hopefully all these new ideas that we have been kind of seeing popping up on the videos that Scopely's putting out comes into fruition and it all works out.
Yeah, I think I at least didn't see Hell Mode coming at all. I don't know if some people had some insider info or whatever that I was oblivious to, but it seemed like it caught most people by surprise.
What do you mean? It's
awesome.
been coming soon for well over a year.
Yeah, you know, that was outsider info for sure. But yeah, it was. I was worried about one thing whenever Hell Mode came out, was the daily tours, how the sheer number of matches that it would be.
Yeah.
And I would say for sure, without VIP and being able to skip normal, or rather the auto clear especially, I would probably just burn out. Even the first few days, that first like auto clear didn't work until this week as we were recording it. This is basically finished 1 week of Hell Mode, and just going through that every day, I was like, I'm enjoying the Hell Mode matches, but I can't skip normal because you need those 1-star silver tokens.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and all that stuff. But I do appreciate now, at least, you know, as long as we're able to skip the easy stuff, the rewards are great. I mean, it is right now, at least. As soon as 4 stars comes out, I'm sure we'll be like, oh, we need more coins, we need more tokens, more TP.
Yeah, that's my worry, is that this is just ushering in 4-star, because I mean, if it is, that's okay, but they need to do a heck of a lot more to usher that in, because if they released 4-star in a month but didn't change anything else currently, the only people that would be able to do anything are the big spenders.
True.
And even them, I doubt they even want to be spending more to do this, because you know it's almost like starting all over. So you got these 3-star gold guys that now have to go to 4-star, and you need a ridiculous amount of coin, TP, and tokens. It's like, man, I just maxed these guys out and had fun using them, and now they suck again.
Yeah, and I think there'll be some fun with it as far as you know, what the guys that you already enjoy using, are they going to get a 4-star move that is going to add to it, or just be another throwaway move, and you know, their current moveset, it just becomes more powerful? Or more interestingly, who are some of the guys that maybe we left behind at 2 stars that with their 4-star move become all of a sudden either really good, or at least a very viable situational character that's worth upgrading. But like you said, just the you know, we dumped so many coins and tokens and TP into, you know, getting our gold roster to where it is, and now, like you said, it's kind of starting over. I think it's going to have to be a balance of, you know, how much can you how much can they give us while still obviously maintaining their sources of profit? Because at the same time, like you said, I know, at least personally, there was an excitement in the beginning to spend and get, when those 1250 bags came out, for instance.
Yep.
There was that excitement of like, oh, we can actually get to 3-star gold. I don't think it's the same this time. It's kind of like a, oh boy, here we go again, versus that excitement. But I think it can still be done right, as long as the costs are within check in the current game economy.
I actually do hope they release the women first before they even think about doing 4-star. And then hopefully, because you've noticed the gap starting to close, that more people are getting 3-star golds. So I think the longer we wait for the 4-stars, at least more of the free to play or the people that spend very little can catch up.
Yeah.
Still. And then we can all start working on the women when they do release that. And then hopefully when the 4-stars do come out, because I think if a 4-stars come out now, the gap's going to be too huge between the spenders and the people that barely spend or the free to play.
I'm inclined to agree. Yeah.
Well, because especially, you look at the gap between, let's say, silvers and golds, when basically the only people that had golds were the ones that were buying 1250s. That was a significant gap, but if you look at it between, the original gap between the 2-star golds and the 3-star bronze, you remember when that was a thing, like, oh, this person's only good because they did a bunch of mega pulls and they were able to pull these 3-star bronze characters, because the move damage and the gem damage is so drastic between 2-star and 3-star. I would anticipate it's going to be similar this way. I mean, what if all of a sudden, instead of like 106,000 health, like a trickster's now 150? Like, that's a big jump, right? If move damage that used to be 15,000 is now 45,000, that's a big jump.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, but still, it's got to be done in a way that's obviously doesn't let, like you said, Davey, let people feel like they've been left behind, but still gives the people on the forefront that want to push their rosters the fastest, give them something to work with.
Yeah. Canatian, what would your integration of the women into the game look like?
I think if they release some in the premium pulls, so you can have the free ones, the free to play that can actually pull them. And then as well as you'll have your special mega pull. But I think if they slowly do it in that sense, then I think that's a great way to integrate it. Okay. And give out, of course, your one free one.
Yeah, at 1-star bronze.
Hey, as long as they have a $6 pack to get the 2-star fuse. I gotta say though, what did you guys think of the Jeff Hardy event, or the Hardy event in general?
I thought it was fun. I mean, it was long, but it was frustrating because it seemed like every single person pulled Matt at 3-star, and it drove me nuts. And I never got him until the end when I got for the prize. But other than that, it was I got extremely lucky with Jeff and got him 3-star silver on one pull, which has not happened for a very long time. Wow. So I took him gold really, really fast, and I was able to do those tours quickly, and it was fun using them. And honestly, I have kind of a flavor of the week with a lot of new guys, and I use them and use them and use them, and then I get sick of them. So right now I haven't used Jeff for, unless I had to, for a long time, because I'm sick of them already.
Yeah, from all the tours.
Yeah, for all the tours. But it was good. I like the rewards you get for the milestones. I think the milestones go a bit too high, because obviously that top one, I mean, only people that pay a ton of money are going to get it. I mean, let's be honest. I didn't pull any chair bags, so I think I maybe spent $20 on maybe to get some more tokens to evolve a guy, but that's all I spent, and I still finished 150 something. Wow. So it's not bad, but to get to that very top milestone, you have to pay money, and I don't think that's right. They should be able to have everyone be able to get there. Now, of course, a lot of people don't have the coin or TP to do it.
Right.
But if you can make it without spending money, I mean, it's kind of a slap in the face, like, you're not going to get this unless you spend, but yet here's all these things that you can do in between to spend also.
Right.
It's like, it's a little bit annoying, but hey, I get it. It is a business and they do need to make money, but it's frustrating that they make that one literally only attainable if you spend money.
Yeah, which I think is kind of silly because, in my mind at least, milestones should be something that if you were proactive and saved and grinded and all that stuff that is a prerequisite, that you should be able to achieve those mathematically. But like you said, those final milestone, at least, mathematically impossible to get to without spending.
Mm-hmm.
But the leaderboard should be where people are more enticed to spend toward the top because the rewards are worth it.
Right.
And let's face it, if you actually paid and whatnot and got to that final milestone, yay, 2-star gold Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy. Like by then, you either pulled him at 3-star, or you're so high on the leaderboard that you're going to probably get the 3-star version, or at least the 2-star gold version. Like, what's the point? It's
well, they
it's
actually get to pick a wrestler too, though.
Well, the top 3 on the leaderboard, but we're talking about the milestone for the individual.
Oh yeah, true.
So, yeah, I mean, and that's
top
an
3 prizes. I can't remember. That was the Brock Lesnar one, right, Nat?
What did you say? I didn't get the first part.
Yeah, I said you got the top 3 in that one, right?
Yes, I did. Was it worth it? Nope.
Oh man.
Who did you ask for?
I picked Steel at the time because he was just released.
Oh, man.
And I didn't pull him. But I regretted doing that event by the time I realized it was a spending event, because initially it was shown to be a farming kind of grinding event.
Right.
And that I'm great for.
Yeah.
And then it just kept going, and where you had to spend money.
Right.
And by then I was too deep into it that there was no point giving up the top 3. But then I still had to go all in. So I'll never do that again, period. But I did get Steel, I guess. But in the end, it really wasn't worth it.
Yeah, that's especially that one, because that was the first one. We didn't know what it was going to end up looking like.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where initially it seemed like, well, if you grind it out and farm it out, you're going to do well. And then it became the spending part, I think the last 3 or 4 days. Yeah,
I think they've definitely improved those quite a bit. But just these collection events in general, I think each one's been a little bit better than the last. But I do agree, this one, by the end of the second week, you're like, is this over yet? So maybe if it was 1 week or 10 days, I think that would probably be ideal. But why don't we rewind a little bit? Why don't each of us tell us a little bit about your journeys through the game, including, let's say, your first mega pulls and the feelings that you had around that, your faction history, just some of those big milestones for you.
Yeah, I'll go first on this one because, like I said, Nat's is far more interesting than mine. Mine's pretty basic. So, started off in a faction I don't even remember the name of. And it was actually, I started the day of WrestleMania last year. So I just hit my year mark, when last WrestleMania came around. But I kept seeing the commercials, so I signed up and went to some weird faction and just kind of played the game, the tutorials, and got the free guys. And the first thing I did was I bought the Andre starter, or no, not the Andre starter pack, the Undertaker starter pack. And was playing with him, was like, this guy's not very good. And then Andre was a free character, so I ended up taking him. I leveled him up quite a bit, and I used him. So one of the reasons everyone always asks me, who is your mistake? And I really never had a mistake, is because I used Andre so much. I used him for like everything. And then I also got lucky within like the first week or two. I did a single pull with some cash I had accrued from all the missions you do. Mm-hmm. And I pulled 3-star Brock Lesnar powerhouse on one pull. And now at the time I had no idea how lucky that was.
Wow.
I was just like, oh cool, Brock Lesnar, one of my favorite guys. Yeah. So I used him a ton, and I would level him up. So I got really, really lucky between seeing how good. I mean, I know everyone got Andre for free at that point, but I realized, he has a choose move, so I was leveling him up quickly, and then I leveled Brock up quickly, and I think Seth too, because he had a choose move. But so I got extremely lucky. So then it was it's almost like it hooked me. I was like, oh, the odds are so great. So if I spend some money, I can get all these guys. So of course the next mega was, I don't remember who it was, but I did like 2 pulls, and I ended up getting Xavier Woods, who at the time was just another wrestler. He wasn't an MP trainer because they didn't have those yet. And Kofi Kingston, I got him, and some other guys. But I didn't really spend a whole lot at the very beginning. I did a couple pulls here and there. I do remember that I was at my daughter's track and field event, and we were just kind of messing around, and Finn Balor was the mega, and I did a pull while I was there, while I was waiting for her between events, and I got him. I was like, oh, cool. I was excited at the time because I knew it was a little bit more, I knew the odds were not that great. I was a little bit more educated on the odds. So I was like happy, but I honestly didn't level him up. And then one time in feud, I faced a Finn Balor with the blue, black, I think, moveset. And I remember I was in Venom, and I messaged Coyote, and our other leaders like, oh my God, Finn Balor's amazing. And I was like, I had him unleveled. Like, I got to work on him. And then of course the trainers came out, and they all became great. But yeah, my journey really is pretty basic. Started with a run-of-the-mill everyday faction, and then during a faction feud or after a faction feud, I looked at the standings, and I saw Kyle, remember, I think it was Vicious Venom. Kyle was in it, and I said, oh, they look pretty cool. So I requested to join, and then they sent me to Vicious Venom 2, which was their feeder faction, and I think I spent 1 or 2 feuds there, and I scored well enough to move up to the main faction. And within a week or 2, we merged with Creep Squad, and we became Creepy Venom. And that was actually pretty fun. At that point, I was just a little guy, and the guys, whoever was in Creep Squad at that time, I looked at as, oh my gosh, these guys are phenomenal. They're powerful. They can beat anyone. I'll never get there. And we feuded with them, and a lot of our guys would get called up to Creep Squad, and I was like, oh man, how lucky are they? They get the top prize and stuff like that. And eventually we broke off. So I think I became leadership before we split off. Maybe it was slightly after. And Kyle says yes, so it was before we split off. But anyway, we split off because we were kind of just giving them our top guys. After every feud, our top 2 guys would go to Creep Squad, and we're just like, we're really not doing ourselves any favors here.
Right.
So we split off and made Venom, and Coyote, myself, C-Noob, Big Nelly were the main 4. There was other leaders in there. Lay, I don't know if anyone knows Lay, L-E-Y. We were the main leaders in there, and we got that. Oh, why is Coyote saying Did I forget somebody? Anyway, we looked into developing feeder factions, and we built Venom into a really good faction. I thought it was an awesome faction. It just got to the point where I think maybe the top 20 guys were carrying the rest of the faction, and that's when it was actually the Powerhouse feud. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. What's going on in the chat? Feels like I said something wrong.
Oh,
I think it was when you were listing people, you probably forgot someone.
Oh,
or they're just messing with you.
Who the hell did I forget? I said Kyle, didn't I? Oh, I thought Kyle. My bad. I thought I said you. My bad. I was thinking of you the whole time. I thought I said you right away. My bad. Anyway, yes, Kyle and Big Nelly. Those 2 guys were actually the 2 guys I gravitated to right away. And C-Noob, of course, but he was like the supreme leader, and he was hard to approach because he was a little intimidating at the time. But anyway, yeah, Kyle, my bad, man. I could have sworn I said your name. You were the original badass in Venom. But anyway, so we built Venom up to I think we were top 5, top 4, and then all of a sudden, so we did a Powerhouse feud. I don't know if you guys remember that, where we could only use powerhouses.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I finished at like 2.3 million ahead of, and there was like 13, 14 guys that finished well above the rest of us. We still finished, fifth or sixth. But I mean, and Canatian and Coyote and these guys can tell you, I went off in the chat. I said, what is everyone doing? You're in the faction. We called you up for a reason. We did all this work, and now Kyle can attest. We absolutely did everything we could to get the best guys in our faction. We merged with a bunch of different. I mean, we did everything. So it was a lot of hard work. And then all of a sudden, feud after feud goes by, and it's 13, 20 guys kicking ass, and the rest of them just not doing anything. I mean, we're talking scores that are like 200,000, 400,000. It's like,
wow,
yeah. You a faction if you're going to do 4 feuds and be done. So I went off in the chat, which I was just mad at that point. And Nat will tell you, this is when she first joined. So at that point, she probably thought I was a big dick. But she at that, and I'll let her talk about this because this is when she came in. Her journey is actually pretty interesting, but I'll let her talk about that part. But after that, I kind of got fed up with doing that, and I wanted to be more with a faction that everyone would input their intelligence and their efforts, and they would all come together as one instead of the top carrying the bottom. So I reached out to Reigns at the time, and I said, listen, I'm looking to make a change. And now granted, I'm a very, very loyal guy. For me to make a change, especially when I'm the leader, is something that I had to think about for a long time. So I talked to Reigns. I basically said, listen, man, I don't know how much more I can take in Venom. And there's 20 guys that are doing exactly what they need to do, but there's 80 that aren't doing anything, and I can't take it anymore. I can't lead these people when they don't care, And I know it's a game, but like we've said before, we all take it to a certain degree of seriousness. So I reached out to Reigns. I talked to Coyote, Noob, and Big Nelly and said, listen, we need to get a group together and see what we can do. And we came up with a list of 20 people and took them with us, and the rest is history. And that was one of those 20. And we've been in Grim ever since, or I should say Creep Squad, Grim Creepers, whatever we're talking. Coyote and myself have moved to leadership. Nat's now in leadership as well. And a lot of those guys that we brought over are still with us. So a lot of loyalty we brought with us. To one person we lost, and I don't know if he'll listen to this. I don't know how the heck we lost him. He's in execution now. And Kyle will know who I'm talking about immediately. Is Yeha Shahabi? I don't know exactly how you say his name. But that guy he never spent on the game, but he put in more effort than anyone. And I actually came up to Vicious Venom with him. Him and I were the top 2 feuders in Vicious Venom 2, and we came up together. So I don't know how the heck we lost him. I've actually talked to him not too long ago, and he tried to get me to go to execution. I tried to get him to come to Grim, not, kind of backhandedly, like, hey, it'd be awesome to feud again. That's what I said to him, and he's like, yeah, you should come to execution. So I don't know how the heck we lost that guy, but he was the coolest guy, and he was such a hard worker, and it was really fun to feud with him. But other than that, we took, what I would assume was the top 20 with us and made Grim stronger, and the rest is history. So that's my story.
It's pretty awesome. I think going back to some of the characters that you got, I think it's a little bit different than some of the common stories that we've heard on this podcast about pulling megas. You getting Brock Lesnar on a single pull. He was also my first mega pull as well, but didn't come as cheaply. But yeah, it seemed like most people did like their first 30 pull, got the mega, and were like, oh, this is not that hard. And then the grim reality sets in. But that was pretty interesting that's how it started, or that you had Finn Balor on your roster and had no idea how good he was, and obviously became a lot better with trainers. But and also, yeah, come to think of it, I had Woods, ADR, Wyatt. Well, I guess everybody had Wyatt, but I'm thinking those 2 specifically that were on my roster prior to trainers that I didn't, or ADR was good even before trainers. I just didn't realize how good he was. and I was like leveling other guys first. We made some interesting choices in the beginning. But yeah, Canatian, you want to tell us about your story? We've been hearing the allusions to it being a good one.
When I first started out, I was in 3 factions, I think, in the beginning. Don't remember their names. I remember one was all Spanish speaking, which was perfect because I never talked. So that was okay. But all of the ones that I joined and this was over 3 weeks. It wasn't anything long term. I was trying to find somewhere to be that had active people in it. And then, so I left, or I'd stay a little bit and realize it wasn't active, and then I'd leave and find another one. And then I came upon Insane Asylum at the time, and they were a group that feuded, which I liked. But the only problem with them was that the leadership, or whoever was designated leader at the time, stopped playing. So we couldn't add or kick out inactives at the time. But there was I had great friendships with a lot of them. So I remember I was quiet. I never said anything for the first 2 or 3 weeks I was there. And then we did a feud, and one of the guys goes, Canatian, you want to join line chat with us? And I was like, okay, I guess. I'm not very talkative, but for sure. And so I joined the line chat with the group. That was the first time they realized I was female. And so we were there for a while until we realized that we kept having inactives that we couldn't get rid of. So there was 4 of us or 5 of us that were really close. And so we made our own faction, Extreme Asylum, at the time, and then moved all the actives over. And we didn't have really, kind of reminds me of the Tuvement rules, where in a way, where we weren't super competitive. We still wanted people to feud and put up points, but it wasn't, you could do one feud and that was fine. You were just more to be a great faction member and heal and that kind of thing.
Right.
To the point where I kept growing, and I was a free-to-play player. I was grinding all the time and farming all the time. I just really loved to feud. And I had gone to Japan, and I took a 2-week break or 2.5-week break, and our faction didn't get into the top 100 when I was gone. I remember, and I came back and I did one feud. There was a feud right away, and I think I got 5 or 6 million in that feud.
Good Lord.
Became 97th.
Wait, 5 or 6 million, and this is back before gold and all that stuff. Right?
I had an 80K roster.
Oh my gosh.
Beast.
So I was frustrated. I was getting frustrated because it was like, well, I'm doing all this and we couldn't seem to keep growing in a sense. It was like we were falling behind because I didn't want to put pressure on the group that they had to feud more, because that wasn't really what the faction was about initially. And the leader at the time understood, he was kind of iffing me to go, and I said, well, no, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay and we'll keep trying this. So then the next feud happened, and I think I got 7 million or 8 million, 7 million. And at the end of that, I think we got, again, 93rd or 95th. And the next day he messaged me and he said, Nat, you got to leave. And I was like, why do I got to leave? He's like, you got to leave. We're holding you back. You actually got to go and find yourself a different place to go, because you love to feud. That's not what we do. And eventually you're just going to get too frustrated here. It's just not a fit for you anymore. So I completely understood that. So I hummed and hawed, and then finally I said, okay, well, I guess I'll leave. And I had no idea I didn't want to go into any faction blind, because I wanted a faction that was like my old one, but more competitive, I guess, in a sense. So I was a crazy nut, and I think I put in global chat looking for a faction, 80K roster, 7 million feud points, message me online, and I gave my line ID. And I went on every single world chat to put that message on. Having no idea that I thought, you know, maybe the top 30 or 40 faction would, because I had no idea what the scores were like. I guess I was so sheltered that I didn't realize it was good. So my line ended up getting bombarded.
Wow.
By messages. So but it was funny because I could weed out the ones I really didn't want to, the factions I really didn't want to go to right away, because my goal was to interview the factions before I actually joined anywhere, I guess, in a sense. And Psych, he was with Venom, and he was in their second feeder, I believe.
Yeah, he was a guy that I had personally never talked to. I think Kyle may remember, but I think he was either in our I think he was in our first feeder, in Venom's first feeder.
Yeah, so he ended up reaching out to me, and he gave me the.
Kyle says who? Exactly. That's how unknown he was. That's why this is such an odd story that this person would message me about this. I mean, it's a guy that I had never talked to, and it was Psych Coyote. I don't know if you remember the name, but I didn't know who he was. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Now, go ahead.
So he messages me, and I ask for the breakdown of the rules and what they were looking for and that kind of thing. And he gave me the lowdown. He said, "We'll message C-Noob at the time, because he thinks, well, maybe you can go to Venom, but if you message him, then you." And I said, "I don't want to message anybody. I'm getting bombarded already with all these messages that were coming in. I was probably just going to go through those and make my decision." So I guess he ended up messaging Punisher at the time. And I was talking to Haven with Luda at the time. And I'm sorry, Luda. I really am. And I was talking to Luda at the time, and a whole bunch of other factions. And it's funny when you do these interviews, you realize like some factions are just odd. I'm going to tell you that right away. So I was getting really interested in Haven, and it wasn't about rank. I actually didn't care about rank at that time. I just wanted to be somewhere competitive that was a good fit. And then all of a sudden, Punisher messages me, and this would have been about 30 minutes later, I think. And he pulls me in for this interview. So I have an interview with Punisher, Big Nelly, and Lay, I believe it was. And so he asked me to send him my roster. So I post my roster. It was really bad, by the way. And then I'm still talking to Haven on the side. And I didn't realize when I posted my roster that the Haven message came up from Luda. And Punisher makes a joke going, "Oh, you're talking to Haven too." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And literally my roster was, I had 6 silvers, 6 3-star silvers, no bronzes, and everything was 2-star gold and below. And my 6 silvers were Kane, yes, Kane, Bubba, Alberto Del Rio, Seth. I don't know, I had one from each class. But anyways, and Punisher kind of joked that how I felt, how do I like Kane at 3-star silver? And I was like, oh, he's not bad. So I ended up saying, well, give me a minute, I'll end up deciding. And for some reason, I was really drawn to Venom. I really liked their whole message and what their rules were at the time. So I ended up picking them. So I'm nervous. I don't know anybody. And nobody was really talkative. I remember that, or they were talkative, but I was kind of like the outsider person. And so we do this powerhouse feud, and I remember going, oh my God, my first feud here is going to be a powerhouse feud. And this is going to be silly. I'm trying to stay or prove that I'm, able to compete here. And I think I ended up coming second behind Punisher in the end.
Do you remember what your score was?
Pardon?
Do you remember what your score was?
I think Punisher was 2.3 and I was like 2.1. It was something like that. And
Okay.
it was pretty close.
And she had her best guy was Wade Barrett. So
What?
it's not like she did 2.1 with someone good. Not that he's terrible, but he certainly wasn't turn 2. And I can't remember who the heck mine was. It was either Brock or must have been Brock. But so I had a decent guy, and she comes up with 2.1. So yeah, that's how she kind of made her name in Venom right away.
So then at the end of the feud, we come 5th. So this is my first feud in Venom. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. You know, I've only ever been, you know, in the 80s or 90s. So I'm thinking, oh, this is just killer. Great. You know, awesome. And Punisher just goes crazy on chat. And here I am excited. I'm super excited that I got 5th. And he's just going, that's it, you know. And I remember going, oh crap, well, I'm not going to say anything. I think I did say I thought we did well, but then I just left it. So then I think it was literally, I don't know, Punisher, you probably was it 2 days after or 3 days after that I get this message from Punisher saying, we're leaving. And I'm like, we're leaving. Where are we going? Well, no, at first I thought he just meant he and leadership was leaving. And I send him a message and I go, like, seriously, I just joined Venom and you guys are all going to get up and go. And now I have to go find another faction. That was what I was thinking. I was going, oh no, you know, what am I going to do? And he goes, no, Nat, you're coming with us. And I was like, oh, okay, well, but then I didn't actually want to go to Creep. Punisher actually had to talk me into going to Creep. From being from a low faction, I mean, you heard all the hype of them being the cheat squad and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, without knowing, again, I want to make sure things are the right fit for me and what I believe in. And this wasn't interviewing. This was just me trusting the leadership to go here. So we get there, and I was in the 3rd faction, Creepy Camp, and I remember messaging Punisher, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to stay. I actually hated it there, and that's just being truthful. I felt so awkward. I barely knew anybody from Venom because I wasn't there long. And I didn't know absolutely anybody from Creep Squad, and everybody kind of knew each other. So I said to Punisher, I was like, I'm in the 3rd faction. I have no idea what I'm doing here. I don't know anybody. I think I'm going to leave. And I actually messaged Luda again. Sorry, Luda. I apologize.
He doesn't even realize how close he was to having you. I mean, maybe he does, and Luda's an awesome guy, but yeah, he maybe doesn't realize how close he was to getting you. Twice.
Snubbed.
So I messaged Luda again, and I'm going, you know, we talked 3 weeks ago, and I was going to come apply. You know, would I still be allowed to come into Haven? And he said yes, based on your scores and that kind of thing. So I told Punisher, I said, I think I'm going to leave. And he said, I forget what you said. You can't leave. I think Punisher said you can't leave. And I was like, well, yeah, I can. He said, no, give it a little bit. I'm going to talk to Super and Reigns at the time, and I'll make sure you can at least get into Creepy Legends, because you should be able to stay there because you can feud. And I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. So that ended up happening, and then I got called up into the main faction. I actually didn't want Punisher to make things happen. That wasn't kind of how I work, but I wanted to prove that I could do stuff. But I did, and he ended up talking to leadership and stuff, and I ended up getting called into Creep Squad for a feud because they had lots of people that couldn't feud that feud. And I guess I never left, and I didn't realize that Punisher was telling people that I would make a certain score, and I ended up making it, and I'm glad he never told me. So, and then I've been there ever since.
You,
So-
Yeah, a lot,
you
a lot
just
went on.
promised that she would score something and didn't tell her what it was.
No, I did not. I told Super, I said, I guarantee she'll do 10 million. And I did not tell her that. And now, like she said, she didn't want to leave because she wanted to be in the top faction. That was not her intention at all. In fact, she kept telling me, stop trying to do favors for me. I'm fine with it. Don't try to like push me when I haven't earned anything. And I had worked with her for, is this before or after I gave you all your homework assignments, Nat?
Homework?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, this is another story. So for after, but that was after the feud was. I think we started before the Creep feud.
Oh, okay. So
But I hadn't
after,
really
but
started on anything though.
yeah. So basically, I recognized what kind of player she was because she was exactly like me. She feuded like me. She took the game seriously like me, and so I kind of realized that she's going to be really, really good. So we got to get her up to. We basically have to keep her here. We have to keep her in our family. And I thought to do that, I think we got to get her up to Creep Squad so she can see the vibe up there. So I told Super, I said, listen, she'll do 10 million, I guarantee it, without telling her that. And there was a lot of stuff. I mean, Super and I and Reigns and gosh, I don't even, probably other leaders were going back and forth trying to find spots. And in the meantime, I was also trying to find spots for Coyote and Big Nelly because when we first joined, we didn't have room. It was myself and C-Noob who went to Creep Squad right away. And all this time, my biggest worry was trying to get all these guys into the top faction. I said, I told them all to come with me, and I'm not going to screw them over by leaving them in the bottom faction. So anyway, it was a lot going back and forth, and I finally got everyone up who I wanted to get up, and including Nat. So Nat comes up, does 10 million, in fact, over 10 million, her first feud, and finished probably third, fourth, fifth in the faction. Something like maybe it was. I think I finished third. Super and I can't remember his name. The Michigan Wolverines guy, or I think it was a girl. I think she finished first, and it was and Nat finished fifth, and I was third, and Super was second. But anyway, she finished with over 10 million points. And I remember Super's like, yeah, Wolverines. That's what Coyote just said. That's who it was. Super's like, wow, yeah, she did it. So she can stay. So basically that was her proving ground. So it kind of speaks a lot to her is she never asked for anything. I never told her what we were expecting, but and still now she goes above and beyond anything she needs to do.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I think it's hard to find in any either competitive sports gaming or at the workplace or whatever, people that are exceedingly good at what they do and exceedingly humble at the same time. So it's pretty awesome to hear that story and hear how basically you just show up, you do your job, and let the performance handle everything for you.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, we can Nat, if you want to touch on the homework, you can do that if you want, since that got an uproar when I said homework.
So I was very good at feuding, but because my roster was so low, so I had my wonderful 6 3-star silvers, which weren't really good. I think the only good one was ADR. And so Punisher goes, okay, let me look at your roster, because I'm going to get you, you're fast. I'm going to get you faster. So I was like, okay, because I wasn't as in depth with the characters in that sense and looking at the trainers. Yeah, I knew there was trainers and that kind of thing, and I put them on, but I wasn't into, you had to get them to this level and put them on this guy. It was beyond me at that moment. So Punisher gets my roster, and he goes, it takes him 5 seconds, I think. And he goes, okay, this is your homework. And it was a list of 3 guys I had to get to gold, and then their trainers up to 5K. And I remember reading it and I'm going, okay, well, this is going to take me 2 months, I was thinking, but it actually really helps. And ever since then, it's always been a list of something to do to make my hey, Coyote, don't make fun of my 3-star Silver Cane. He's going to be gold one day. And and so ever since then, it's always been, I have a list of what I'm going to work on. And it's always been that I grind for it, I do it. And he made me faster, and I built my roster quite strong, that it became, I didn't have to work as hard, I guess, even though I still work hard, but it was just easier, let's just say.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's that's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that homework concept. Like, okay, you have these 3 guys now, max them out and max their trainers. But I think it's really important to have goals in general, but in this game as well, where it's not just a matter of making decisions based on some event or whatever the case may be, but really looking at the long-term viability of your roster and doing what it takes to get there. Because Canatian, I know you prior to understanding a little bit more about Feud myself, because it's not something that I've really dived into until more recently, as basically somebody that has grinded for resources like crazy. What's your XP right now, your level?
I think I'm level 287.
287. So clearly you have bought all of your success.
Yeah.
Yeah, 287. So, I think that's and we've talked about this with Compy as well. Like, I think people sometimes look at players in the top factions that have big rosters and say, oh, they bought, some people do, but not everybody. And the one area that you just have to look at to see how much work they put into this game is that player level. And 280 whatever speaks for itself. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how much she grinds. Like she was saying, oh, this is going to take me 2 months. So I gave her this list of stuff to do, thinking, all right, she'll do this, and literally in 2 months I'll hear from her again. So that I need more. So a week later, she's like, all right, I got my first gold, or I did the first 3 or something. I'm like, what? How did you do that so fast? So it's not only about grinding and doing this. It's, I looked at her roster, and she had every single person on her roster that she needed to be really, really, really good. I mean, she was already a damn good feuder. And I, like I said, I saw myself in her and realized, with the roster that I have, if she had it, she would surpass me. And of course, now she has. She's well beyond me. I can't touch her anymore. I mean, my roster's still bigger, but she is so freaking fast. And we always race in blitz because that's kind of the true. We line up the same lineup and we say go. And I used to beat her. I mean, she can tell you, I used to beat her 9 times out of 10. And we just did it not too long ago, and she beat me three times in a row. And I literally was like, I could not have gone any faster. How do you do that?
Okay.
I blame it all on the Canadian internet connection. It's obviously much faster than the American.
She must live next to one of the Scopely servers or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so this actually leads into a question I did want to ask now that I have you on the show here, Canatian. So what was it, 2 feuds ago or so? I'm feuding now with Execution, and never get paired up with high level talent prior to more recently after moving over, and I was like, oh, top lane, and I'm going up against Canatian. This should be fun. No. So we message in the podcast lobby here, like, oh, we got paired up, cool. And it was that the 9-man feud, or was that a 5-man feud? I can't remember now.
I think it was a 5-man feud.
Okay, yeah, I think it was a 5-man feud. And mind you, I have next big thing, max trainers and everything. He's clearing house for me left and right. I'm in my 3rd match, and she goes, done. What? How? How did you do that? Right? And my roster's all my feud roster's all gold, so it's not like there's any cakewalks in there. Like, okay, fine. And then we get paired up again the second time. Like, all right, let's do it again. I'm in my 2nd match. She's like, sorry, I'm done. Like, what do you mean you're done? How are you doing this? And by the 3rd time it came around, I think I managed to get into my 4th match before she beat my roster. I have no idea. It must be either lightning fingers or incredibly fast internet or both. But either way, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I've never really known how to explain it. It could be fast internet. It could be lots of things, but I actually, and it sounds kind of crazy, but I actually see the possibilities of the cascades coming down. If that makes any sense to anybody,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'll make moves that are not always the most obvious moves because there's potential for more in the cascades that come down. I know it sounds really weird, but
no, it makes sense. I mean, because sometimes you're looking at, let's say, you know, you clear a gem that's going to bring down a column, then there's like a 1 in 6 or 1 in 7, if you include the loot box, chance for, you know, the like 2 gems to match with whatever falls into that spot. So that's definitely, you know, a part of it. But I think it's also maybe you're also quicker at just looking at the entire board and analyzing what's about to happen. Because usually with turn 2 guys, you know, it's mindless. You just get the feeder color and go from there. But at the same time, you know, maybe you're also just quicker at when the first board comes in to immediately see all those possibilities and not have to take that extra split second to think through.
yeah,
go ahead.
I kind of compare it to you're doing a word search, and there's people that need to really look at the word search to find the word, where you can look at the word search and it just pops right at you. It's kind of like that's what the boards look like to me, I guess, in a sense.
So it's almost like you're not looking for specific gems. You're looking at the entire picture, and then those things pop out.
Exactly.
Whoa.
Her saying that reminds me of the scene in Step Brothers where John C. Reilly's character is like, I look at the math problem and I just see the outcome. and the therapist is like, are you describing the plot of Good Will Hunting? You seen that movie?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, my best friend was Ben Affleck.
Well, I remember, actually it reminds me, one of the first Tim Ferriss podcast episodes, I don't know if any of you guys listened to that incredible podcast. It was one of the first ones where he was interviewing Josh Waitzkin, who's a chess prodigy as a child and grew up to do some amazing things in other areas too. So he's a master of learning. But I remember one aspect because I was playing chess pretty heavily at the time, and he basically said that he's gotten to a point where it's not so much about looking at the individual possibilities of the moves, because that's kind of what you do as you keep playing chess, is you're looking at your move possibilities, what are their move possibilities as a result of those, and you're looking at all those different combinations. And he said eventually he got to the point where he basically can look at the board and just get an overall feeling for what's the best route. So it's a much higher level of playing, and I don't know. I think it probably takes a level of practice. I've never thought about this game in that context, but I might have to. It would probably get it to be a little more interesting.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I'm done. I said it.
Yeah, and in a sense, it's knowing. I always say it's knowing how to play without trainers and using everybody.
Right.
And I found that built up the speed, because if you're out of possibilities, you know how to work your way around it easily.
Mm-hmm.
So in that kind of sense, I don't do that as much anymore. I should still be doing that because it's great practice. But yeah, I just love playing without trainers. Ask Punisher, I'm cheap. I will never move my trainers unless it's for a feud. And I play with all my golds and that kind of thing. And I just do anything and I'll play without trainers because I find it makes you think more. And it does build up the speed, even though it may take you a little longer to finish a match, but it's great practice.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as much as I think we all hate versus for some of the incredibly terrible cascades that you get against you to end your streak, the fact that you are playing without props definitely helps. And I don't know if you remember a couple of months ago, there was that one MP trainer bug where your trainer would show up for the opponent. And as a result of that, you could basically go into a match without an MP trainer, and they wouldn't have their MP trainer. It was almost like playing versus without trainers, and I thought that was so much fun because, again, it brought back your ability to have to think about how to get from point A to point B without just a single match. It was definitely good practice.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100% agree.
Now, I did want to ask you another thing, Canatian, about farming. So there's this ongoing debate, as you know full well, and I think you know which side I'm on, of let's take the top 3 farming options. Obviously, there's Callisto, which is probably the most readily available to most people. There's $1 Million Man with Woods and IRS, and then there's Seth Rollins with Steele and Daniel Bryan. So what is your thought process behind what makes the best farming setup?
I don't go by the amount of loot boxes because I think VIP changed that. And I never had $1 Million Man. I do have them now. But I always think people hate to farm, or most people hate to farm. So if you have tough and you have steel, the matches go within less than a minute. And you still get normally 6 to 13 loot boxes. And you're still getting, I think you're getting more bang for farming with tough and steel than even $1 Million Man and Callisto. With $1 Million Man, he's very good in verse, especially if you have a farming partner. But I think other than that, with the VIP and the extra loot boxes, it's tough steel. There's no debate.
What are your thoughts on that, Punisher?
I mean, it's all about speed for me. So yeah, like she said, you can get a match in with tough really, really fast. But her and I always used to race to 50 TP when we farm together. It's basically, we're on Discord and we say, all right, first to 50 blue wins. Wins nothing, but wins. And I would always use $1 Million Man. Now this is before VIP, so it's a little bit skewed. But with $1 Million Man, I would smoke her. I would get to 50 before she got to 30. But she wasn't using any health packs. I was. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. Now with VIP, you get the 3 or 4 extra loot boxes. And I don't know, Nat, have we raced with VIP yet? I don't think we have.
I don't think we have yet either. But I think tough steel would beat $1 Million Man, no problem.
Well, I don't know if he'd beat him. Well, actually, he probably would because he's so fast.
I think you two need to have this competition.
You better test it out. Yeah, we better test it out.
We will test it out.
Well, I only, I don't know, not too long ago managed to get steel, and that was really eye-opening with the tough steel combo, with the raw bonus and just being able to farm a lot of the superstar hard mode matches, like you said, within seconds. I was doing, at least with whatever internet I have, being able to go from the battle button back to the menu to hit the battle button again within about 50 seconds. So when you're able to do it that fast, I mean, the odds are so low to hit the 5 TP and definitely the 3-star silver tokens, right? So when I look at it mathematically, to me, it makes more sense to get as high volume as possible. Even if it's only the 6 boxes and not the 13. But I did find with VIP, this was obviously after VIP was out, I rarely ended up with 3 loot boxes, and maybe never or almost never ended up with 0. That said, I just got $1 Million Man more recently with the faction loot and working him up. And like you said, for versus, unbelievable. Like with a farming partner. But I'm finding they're kind of useful in, like, I'm really cheap with health packs. I just don't like using them at all. And so I have a bunch to use for feud and blitz, and that's about it.
Right.
So what I've been enjoying doing now is using $1 Million, like the daily tours, so that at least I can, get those loot boxes in those situations. But then for farming, I'm still doing the tough steel combo for speed, for volume rather, more so than just speed.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Million Dollar Man for versus is pivotal. Like you said, you get so
great.
fast. In fact, Nat and I just last night farmed because I wasn't around because Memorial Day. I wasn't around to do it on Monday morning, and I think we did it in what was it, like 30 minutes, Nat? Because we had 3 matches going at once, but still.
Yeah, it was
That's
about
incredible.
So it's versus is tedious and in some cases not even worth it. But with Million Dollar Man, to make it go quicker, it's not too bad.
Takes a sting out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I would definitely love to hear the follow-up between you two racing in the current setup.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. That'd be pretty awesome. My money's on that. She's fast.
Yeah. I used to be faster, Until she got her damn new phone.
Oh, that's funny. That's awesome. Yeah, I know. New World Order is always has the other side of the debate with saying $1 Million Man's faster. And I think, Coyote, did you? I think you had mentioned in the chat here that you disagree with that. Was that regarding $1 Million Man over Tough Steel? But it's definitely a good debate. And I think they kind of serve different purposes. If you're willing to, put up a faction heal or use your health packs, then $1 Million Man's going to be amazing. If you're cheap with that stuff like I am, Tough Steel, pretty dang cool.
Yeah, and I'm super cheap with health packs too. But I think it's also of what you're used to. I mean, people have always been used to $1 Million Man, so that had them.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be just a normal. To me, I think if I ended up going to $1 Million Man, I just got him. I haven't upgraded him yet, but I think he would just become too slow. Sometimes it's what you're used to and comfortable with, you just kind of stick to. So
yeah, there's definitely that. I have not actually taken him into Superstar. He's a max silver right now to do any farming. I know he'll get more damage and more health at gold, but he's just at that spot that he's great for the hard mode of LT tours. But yeah, it's interesting. Definitely a different flow to it. So going back to feud a little bit, you've both been obviously very consistent, strong feuders over the past year. So can you talk to us a little bit about the mindset that's needed to put forth that kind of consistent, unrelenting effort, feud after feud?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, you got to have the time. If you don't have the time to feud, you really can't do anything. That's been my problem lately. Is I used to be able to go for, if it was a 48-hour feud, I could go for 42 of the 48 hours, and now, it's not able to work anymore especially in the summer now coming up. But the kids having their sports and the wife not wanting me on the phone is just, it's cut into my time. But if you do have time, the competitiveness and really just wanting everyone to succeed, and like Super just said, we feud for each other. Just wanting that success for your faction, it's almost like they depend on you to get these high scores. So for me, it's almost like a pressure on me that, okay, I got to score, I got to finish in the top 20 of the feud event, or I'm a failure. A lot of times my goal is 10 million. If I can get to 10 million, I'll feel all right with myself. I can get there. And obviously not this last one, but in a normal feud. If I can get to 10 million, I'll be good. It's really about, for me, it's about the competitive edge. I want Creep Squad or Grim Creepers to be the best. I want them to succeed. I want everyone to be happy, everyone to get these cool rewards. And, basically, I feel like if I do my job, other people will hopefully look at that and try to push themselves as well. And that's kind of what I wanted to do in Venom. I kept finishing first all the time and saying, hey, everyone, come on, someone catch me, someone beat me. And it just never happened. It got to a point where the top 20 were trying and the rest of them weren't. But, there's a lot more that goes into it. And I think the best person to ask this question would be Nat, because of what she does. She has the time, she has the dedication, and she has the joy for it. So feud to me is, I used to love it, and now I hate it. I hate feud just because Well, one is you're always fighting with the red ring, and that's the thing that pisses me off.
Yeah.
I get so aggravated when I'm in a match and it goes to the next screen, and I just have to wait and wait and wait, and then I feel the pressure of, okay, now I'm making everyone else wait, and it just drives me nuts. And I know everyone goes through that, but I used to love feud. It was really fun when Nat and I would feud together because we would race all the time, and we would, it was really fun. Well, now. And she'll tell you this too, is I swear to God, the universe is against us feuding together, because every time we try to, we either search for an opponent forever, and then it goes to 5 minutes and we time out, or we go into it, and especially this last feud, we weren't together for the first, I think, 4 or 5 hours, and finally we hooked up and we're like, yeah, let's stick together. And that lasted 2 feuds because we're like, screw it, let's just separate. Well, what happened was we'd get into a feud and we lost. It's like, wait a minute, we hadn't lost this entire time, and now we're together, we lost, and we'd get delays, and it's just really, really weird. So we connect every now and then, but we used to feud together nonstop, and it was fun. But I swear to God, the universe is against us; they won't let us feud together anymore. But I hate, like Super was saying, I hate when Super jumps into my feud because he's always got the top roster, and I hate not having the top line. So I always yell at him. I'm like, stop jumping in my feud. If you see me in there, stay out. But yeah, Nat will have probably a more interesting answer than this because she has the joy to feud. But mine is just competitiveness and wanting everyone to do well.
I think you need to love to feud. If you don't, it's a chore, and people don't want to try if it's a chore. It's work. And then I think just always doing your best. You don't know whether that 1 feud or 2 feuds is going to make a difference. So that's the mindset I look at it in. And you have to find it fun, which is hard to do, especially when you're on like your 18th hour or something. But, if you have a good group of people and you get those little words of encouragement to keep going, or everybody's doing great, keep feuding hard, it really does help. And if you have a great group of people to feud with as well, and the chat's always going and that kind of thing, and if it's fun, then it's great. To keep myself going, I have a routine, and it's pretty basic routine, but literally I have my coffees at certain times. I keep the lights on. I'm by the fireplace. Punisher always laughs at me because he goes, it's coffee time. And I'm going, yes, it is. So that is, if I keep the routine, it becomes normal, and but yeah, you have to love to feud. If you don't, it's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, like you said, after a certain number of hours, especially when you're using the same characters and they're turn 2, and there's no real variety in it. But I would also say, yeah, the red rings are by far the most annoying because all you want to do is jump into the next match. And I've kind of had that feeling too. It's only been, I don't know, like 2 or 3 feuds here I've done with Execution now, and Punisher, I totally get that. Just the red rings are like, I'm not helping right now. This sucks.
Yeah, exactly. It's so aggravating.
So aggravating.
One thing that does help me get through it, and I don't absolutely hate it. I hate it because of what it is. It's just this race to get these higher points, and everyone always complains about the higher factions cheating. So it's kind of the whole politics in it and bugs the crap out of me. But yeah, the red ring is the thing. But what really has gotten me through it lately is watching streams while doing it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to see others, especially Mark. I always watch Mark stream because he usually always streams during the first 5 hours of feud. It's nice to see others having to struggle with that too, and it's not just you.
Right.
And Mark's the best because he gets so pissed off, and it's like you can channel your anger through him, and it's fun to see him go off on the computer and be like, "What the hell is taking so long?" So it's funny to watch him do that. But that does help.
Mark is just real now that he can't. He's in here listening live, but he can't talk. So this is pretty fun. We had him on the podcast more recently, but my favorite with him, because he doesn't post as many of his pull videos much anymore, but he did one recently for this Memorial Day pack. It's just, and he didn't skip all either. He was going through each one and just watching that. It was like, okay, well, next time that actually helped me not pull. So that was a good. Thank you, Mark, for your service. But yeah, it's
Coyote just mentioned, I think Mark did talk about this before, but I remember back in Venom when Gerson started streaming, and I used to watch Gerson. I've been with Gerson since he first streaming and started his channel. And I said to Mark, I said, listen, man, you have this giant roster. At that point, Mark was doing pull after pull after pull. He was spending a ton of money on all these pulls. And he had everybody, he had, at the time, no one had Braun Strowman Showboat. He did. And I said, listen, you got to start a channel. He's like, I did it a long time ago and I don't want to do it. And I kept bugging him about it. And finally he did it. And now I look at it and it's like, I need his stream to feud. So it's kind of funny that it turned around that way.
Awesome. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, and also thank both of you for your contributions for gameplay videos, because I remember there were several videos that I had watched on his channel that he would thank both of you for that gameplay, which it's I'm really glad that we have Mark and Choli and Compy and Brian and a bunch of others doing gameplay videos, because it's one thing to look at a tier list or look at the guide and kind of figure out how they would play. It's another thing to really watch a new character and decide whether that's somebody you want to invest in if they're already on your roster, or go for them if they're not on your roster. It's an incredible service to the community.
It really is. Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I find a lot of them, like you guys doing the podcast, the streamers, the people that do the tier list, I don't think they get enough credit for the amount of time and work that they do put in. So kudos to everybody that does that.
Amen. Gotta love the content creators in this game. You guys are the best. This has been fun. It's our first reboot of the podcast after the end of the Tubement podcast. So we thought it would be fun to have you guys, because we've been talking about having this interview for like a couple months at this point. But also Punisher, like you said, just the worst part about feuding outside the red rings is all the politics and bullshit that goes on around it among factions. And I just thought it would be cool for the first episode would be us as now relatively newly minted execution guys to interview the so-called rivals. Can't talk to you guys. Cheat Squad. And because like our goal with this podcast is the same as it's always been. It's about the people. It's about the people behind the names, and realizing that we all go through a lot of the same things, and we all have a lot that we can learn from each other and understand. If we seek to understand before we seek to blame, I think the community and the world would be a better place.
Yeah, I completely agree. If we could take all the bashing on social media out, I mean, like I've said to you many times in the past, it's like everyone plays this game to have fun. I mean, that's really what this is all about. Some people are more addicted to it than others, but really our end result is to build our rosters and be able to have fun doing it. So why does anyone have to be labeled a cheater? I mean, why do you have to cheat in the first place at a mobile game?
Yeah.
So, I mean, whether you are or not, the people that cheat, I mean, there's been a ton of bans going around, so obviously those people were the cheaters. I mean, if you cheat, you're probably going to get caught and you're probably going to get banned. So let's stop throwing bullets around and saying everyone's doing it and just have fun. It's what this game was meant to be.
Yeah, and also the other thing that I always have to remind myself in general in life is, if something may seem like a big issue in the present moment, we might get all worked up about it, emotionally driven about it, but if you fast forward a year, 5 years, 10 years from now and look back, how many shits are you going to give about it?
Exactly.
If it's zero, if it doesn't affect you, then it shouldn't be a big deal right now. Looking back 10 years from now, what I'll remember about this game are the conversations that we have.
Yep.
And the fun that we had when playing together. That's it. So if we start to lose sight of that, I think we're just doing ourselves a disservice. But it's an honor to be able to sit down and have a conversation with you guys and bring, again, the human element back into this game. And that was the original mission of this podcast, and it continues to be so, rebrand and all.
Yeah, you do an excellent job, and we very much appreciate it.
Yes, for sure.
All right. Well, with that, appreciate you guys again, and we will see you in episode 2.
This is the DVO podcast.